All right, guys, back with the series on getting a job as a tenure track professor or just getting a job in academia as a whole, right? Uh, Previously, we talked about before the getting on the job market, putting your feelers out there. Then we talked about um, applications, where you should apply, the differences between R1 and R2 institutions. But now let's get into, hey, you put in all those applications. Now you are getting emails back saying, hey, we want to do a phone interview with you, right? So let's talk about that. And the phone interview, right, isn't actually a phone interview. Let me put that out there. So it was actually a Zoom interview because, we're we're more technologically advanced now, so we're doing Zoom interviews now. So you get on a Zoom. So this is the setup, right? You pick a time. It's usually 15 to 30 minutes. 30 minutes will be the max time that you have a Zoom interview. These things are quick, right? These things are quick. You got to have your answers and you got to have them ready to go, right? And it's because they have, I mean, it depends on the university, it depends on the institution. So if we're talking about a bigger institution, they might have a good, I don't know, 50 candidates out of the hundreds of applications that they had. Smaller universities might have, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 phone interviews, depending on how many applicants that they had. But, you've made it. I mean, first off, clap it up, celebrate, because celebrate the small wins. Only because not everybody gets to this point. Not everybody gets a call back. Not everybody gets a phone interview or a Zoom interview, right? So, you know, take some solace in that. Okay? So that's important to do. Celebrate the small victories. Celebrate all victories, right? But then lock in, right? You got to lock in because now you got to make sure this phone interview gets you to the next step, which is the in person, right? So the format is typically, and I've I've had my fair share, so I've seen a lot of strange-ish ones, right? And what you have here is you get on the Zoom call, and there's about, oh, it depends on the size of the committee. So you might have four people on the call, you might have six people on the call, and you're just you're squares in the middle with everybody surrounding you, right? And feels kind of weird, but don't freak out. It's okay. Um, they read your application materials. They want to know more about you than anything else, right? To see, okay, can't should we bring this person in? Are they a good fit? Because it's not that they're trying to, well, they are trying to figure out, okay, who is who. Are you the person that you say in your application, or are you someone different? Because people have great applications, they might not be great people. And this is where I get to my advice. Make sure that you are presenting yourself in the best light. You say, why do you have to say that? And you will be surprised. Some people might not present themselves in the best light, especially when they get to the, interacting with people face to face, right? Or face to video. So make sure that you are interacting with people in the best light, but also make sure you get some help. And what I mean by that, before you get on the Zoom interview, make sure you ask people, oh, what kind of things have you been asked? Ask your PI, ask your mentors, what kind of things, because they've been on search committees, what kind of things do they ask candidates on these interviews? And so something that I did during my time in these on the job market, whether it was a Zoom interview or in person, I wrote down one, after the interview, what I did is wrote down my thoughts on the interview, right? And then two, wrote down some of the questions that they asked, right? While we were talking, right? And it kind of helped me with the next interviews because a lot of the questions that they ask are pretty much the same. They're just trying to see whether or not you can articulate your research, your goals, and everything, all the above, right? Uh, so I literally wrote down, right? Wrote down everything that was talked about in during and after. So I took some time, and you should too. When I got done with the interviews, and the 15 minutes, 15 20 minute interviews, right? Every time I got done with the interview, I sat, and I wrote my feelings about how the interview went. I wrote about how they were interacting with me. I wrote whether or not if I could see their body language. One, it was one Zoom interview. We had all of our cameras off, which was kind of strange, but they were still good people. But I like to see people's body language. It was like, okay, they were interested, or they weren't interested, or they were asking me probing questions, but it was questions of interest, right? And that was important. And those things are important to notice when you're on the Zoom interview, because it gives you a little bit of, oh, okay, they're interested. Oh, okay, they like that answer. Okay, they didn't really like that answer, or oh, they're not interested at all. Because I've had one. I had a late interview. It was the University of Nebraska, and they there was only two people on the call, and it was kind of weird because it was really late in the process. First and foremost. Secondly, um, it was it didn't feel very it didn't feel very interviewy. It felt like, oh, this is a checkbox. Like, oh yeah, we gotta speculation, speculation. Put that out there. The speculation, but it felt like they were just, oh, like we got to interview more diverse candidates, right? They didn't seem too interested in my research or what I had to say, or the things that my goals are, and how I wanted to bring, be, more, bring more diversity to STEM, things like that, right? My goals. I don't think they really cared about it. Obviously, I didn't get a call back from that one, but it was just weird because it was like really late in the process, and I already kind of started to go on in-person interviews at that point. So it was kind of weird, but what can you do? So some of these questions, right? So I'm gonna go through a few of these so you guys can know kind of the things that they're asking, right? So um, they'll ask about, what was my research journey, right? How did I get to where I am today, right? And they're going to ask you things like that. They're going to ask you about your research, and you need to give them the elevator pitch, because remember, you only have 15 minutes. So give them they're going to ask, okay, what is your research, and things of that nature, right? Like, okay, how do you think you feel like you fit in this department, right? Because it's all about fit, and we'll talk about that later. But it's all about fit for a lot of these departments, because you might have an amazing research program, but do you fit in that department? Not only research wise, but personality wise, right? And that will come into play later, right? Um, and then they'll actually, and then one thing that you should do, always do before the phone interview, look up people you would like to collaborate with, because they're going to ask you, like, who would you be who in the department do you think you would like to collaborate with or work with, or do your research align with these different people in the department, right? So you got to have a list of people, right? You got to, I'm telling you to do some research, right? You want this job, you got to do some research. You got to put in the work. So make sure that you go on the website, you go to the department, you look at who's in the department, who's doing the research, what kind of research that they're doing, and figure out different collaborations, right? That you could do with them, right? Or with the people that you pick out. And that's so important, because it tells them, oh, you did the work. You put in the work to figure out, oh, who's in the department, what kind of research are they doing, and you did the work to create a collaboration via that. It might not even come to fruition, but you are thinking about it. And that's what's important here, because a lot of people won't put in the work. They think, and I'm gonna tell you this, um, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm too good. Like my application and my resume speaks for itself. So I don't need to put in the work. You should just want me. And that's how a lot of people don't get a job or don't get a call back. Right. So then, they might ask you like, what's your 5 year plan? What's your 10 year plan? Right. How will you recruit students to your lab, right? And it all depends on what kind of university that you're at, but how will you recruit students to your university, right? What DEI and service activities would you want to be a part of, or would you want to start, right? Things like that. How will and this is and now I'm reading off of one of the minority serving institutions that I applied at that I really really liked. It's just in a really really expensive area. How will I serve the minority population at the university, right? And that was a great question for me. There was one question actually that really really resonated with me. It was UMD. It was University of Maryland, the Pharmaceutical Science Department, and they one of the interviewers asked me. They was like, "Well, how would you like to be mentored?" And I was like, that took me aback because I wasn't expecting that question. Which I was like, "Oh, wow, that's really dope." And those are the things. And I actually got an in person with them, but those are one of the things that really stands out, right? That they actually care, and you got to have an answer. Like I said, man, make sure you aren't sitting there, hmm, nah, 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 nah. Make sure off the top of your head you're ready. And if you need to practice with people, practice with people. But you gotta make sure that you have an answer for them, right? And you can think for a little bit, like you can be in like, okay, like that sort of thing. But don't be too long. They don't have that kind of time, right? They might ask you, oh, what kind of classes have you taught? What kind of classes would you want to teach, right? So they'll ask you, okay, in a lot of these different institutions, you got to teach to get your salary. They was like, okay, what kind of classes would you want to teach? What kind of classes are you able to lecture, right? Um, then they'll ask, oh, so many different things, but then you have the opportunity, and this is important as I wind down this video. You have the opportunity to ask them questions, and you should, and you must, right? And the reason being is because they want to know that you're interested. It's all about interest. They're courting you, you're courting them. We're courting each other, right? And so as much as interest as they show in you, you have to show in them. Okay? So make sure not only you do your research for collaborations, but also you have questions for them to ask, because they will at the end of it, right? They'll give you about 5 minutes, and they're going to be like, okay, well, what questions do you have for us? And make sure that you have questions. And like I said before, I always like to ask about tenure, right? I like to ask about their tenure process. I like to ask about what DEI initiatives that they have. I like to ask about the different programs and scholarships and things that they have. I like to ask about what kind of technology that they have. Now, things you can look up, like the technology thing, you can look up, but there's just questions. The tenure question is usually one that is my go-to because they usually don't talk about it, right? And it's something that you have to ask, right? You can also ask, what's the retention rate, right? Do people and these aren't like, if they get offended by any of these questions, it's some way that you don't want to be. Okay, remember that. So make sure that you're asking questions. Make sure that you're doing your research. These are important. This is the kind of work that you have to put in to make it to the next step, and then make it to the step that a lot of people don't get to, which is the in person. Okay. So the in person is what you want to get to, and that's where you shine. And that's what we'll talk about next time. So that's it for me. I'm the scientist who live, aka Dr. Stevens. Oh, wait, flip that around. I am Dr. Stevens, aka the scientist who live, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.